All right, welcome back to the RunThrough Trails Podcast. I'm your host, as usual, James Tilley, and we're joined by a super special guest today, Dani Moreno. Welcome, Dani.
Thanks for having me, James. I'm excited to be here.
Nice, yeah, we're super excited to have you as well. So Dani, for those of you that don't know, most of you probably do, professional trail runner, adidas TERREX athlete from the US, but also a fellow podcast host, as well as many other things. So we've got loads of stuff to chat about today, Dani. But first thing we always kind of get into with a new guest is just like a little bit of background, like where you grew up, a little bit about your childhood and how you got into running, like how you found the sport.
Yeah, I'd like to say running found me. I kind of am of that crop where I played a lot of soccer growing up, and running was, a big part of that. I played, center midfield, right wing on some club teams, and yeah, we would just kind of like run before practice, and I always had a little bit more energy. And playing in the center midfield, I just actually loved that position because I got to run so much. But I guess if I even look before that, we had some things called like jogathons in elementary school where it was kind of like a fundraising thing where you'd get kind of this piece of paper put on you with pins and you try and run as many laps as you could. I
The
can't
original
imagine that.
backyard ultra. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Um, and I can't imagine the lap was maybe bigger than like 200 meters or 300 meters. I mean, we were like in elementary school.
That's cool.
But I just remember I'd always run like the most laps out of almost the entire school. Like there'd be like one boy that beat me. And my parents already kind of like took note of that. And I found that to be a lot of fun, like kind of just like challenging myself. And then I think elementary school, I like kind of made the track team. I was an alternative because there was, just sprinting. And then middle school is like when track came along.
Okay.
And I actually got to start putting like times to, the effort I was putting out, which was pretty cool.
Nice. Awesome. Yeah, it's quite a different culture with running over in the US compared to the UK. I mean, I'm sure it's similar in the US, but the school that I went to was very kind of soccer, like football focused, bit of cricket, bit of rugby, but there was no athletic scene at all. And obviously, it's fairly common for really good athletes, especially runners, distance runners in the UK, to maybe come across to the US, especially for college, and be like sponsored to be part of to get a scholarship at university and be part of that culture. So like you guys were running on the track in middle school and like from that young of an age. Is that completely normal? That's like the case with most schools, or is that a California thing or
Yeah, that's the case with actually most schools. Definitely.
really?
California, Texas, and Florida, and I think New York are probably like the most competitive schools when it comes to track and field, just like an all around track and field team. There are
Yeah.
distance programs like throughout the country, but I honestly think it's like our great weather year round.
Mm.
And just kind of like being a history of like sprinters, great sprinters coming from America and like from those states particularly. Um, but yeah, that's funny. I've never thought about that, but yeah,
Yeah,
I've
it's
been going
definitely
track and field meets since I was little.
yeah, I suppose it's just normal. I think about it because my daughter's like 4 years old right now, and she loves running as a 4-year-old kind of would. But I'm kind of thinking, how can I get her into the sport without pushing her? And the only real way in the UK is to go to a running club and be part of like proactively look for the scene. It's not something she's ever going to do in school. So yeah, it's just an interesting difference. But so you've also got a background in team sport in soccer, um, because I've kind of heard you talk in the past as well about being into kind of adventure sports and snowboarding and all that type of stuff. Obviously, again, that's like a California thing. Was that since childhood, or is that more in later life when you've gotten into like action sports, adventure sports?
Yeah, the action sports definitely came, like, after college,
Okay,
because kind of with the, track and field in elementary school, middle school, high school, eventually got recruited to college. That's also I don't know, maybe that's an American thing, not too sure, but, like, when you're especially in a D1 program, like, they're trying to protect you at all costs from, like, doing anything else
right.
that gets you injured, especially if they're, like, paying for scholarship and stuff like that. Yeah.
So is that like written into the scholarship? You can't go snowboarding in the winter if you're
Uh No, it's not written into there, but it's like it's, actually, I mean, my team had to sign a contract that we couldn't do certain things during season, now that
yeah.
I think about it, but, I think it's just, like, all the coaches are pretty just, like, strict across the board, especially at the D1 level.
And I guess you guys as athletes and students are also pretty serious to be of that standard. You're probably taking it pretty seriously, but then you're also a college age kind of kid, so you probably want to go and do fun stuff too. For you, is it? It sounds like you've always been a good athlete. Like, when did you decide to pursue professional athletics? Was it like this natural progression where you were good at it, so you started doing more of it, and then you got the scholarship, and it just became like this is kind of the path, and you're surrounded by people doing that, or did you make a proactive decision of I want to try and be a professional athlete?
Yeah, for me, it was more that my parents kind of had told me from a somewhat young age that if I wanted to go to university, like, I had to get a scholarship. Neither of my parents went to, like, a 4-year, and just, like, finances-wise, that was probably my best shot at, like, being able to choose the school that I wanted to go to.
Okay.
Um, and so, I don't know, I just always kinda, like, had different activities going on, like, I played the piano, I was in Girl Scouts, I was in choir, soccer, running, and I kinda just was, like, throwing stuff at the wall, but the thing that, like, aligned most with me naturally was definitely running, and I even got, like, a couple of letters for soccer for not D1 schools, but other schools in the area, so that was kind of something that was a potential option as well. That was my junior year.
Yeah.
Um, but going into my senior year, I quit soccer just to go all in on running and see what would happen. And yeah, that's luckily I got some offers from schools that I really liked, one of them being UC Santa Barbara, which is where I ended up, which is still on the coast in California. It's like right on the beach. One of the most beautiful campuses, in my
Cool.
opinion. Very big like surf culture and stuff like that. But um yeah, it's funny that you call that not funny, but like interesting you call that professional because I wouldn't have considered myself a professional at that time. I actually like quit running after school, and then I started to run and then got, signed, to Hoka.
Yeah, I guess it depends. Like, defining a professional athlete is always a tricky thing anyway, because probably
Yeah,
back at that time, the best trail runners in the world still had a job. So in a
yeah,
lot of ways, if you're doing another job, you're not really a professional. It's like back in the day with rugby players, you'd have people representing, you know, playing for their national team, but they were like a plumber on the weekend or working as an electrician because there
yeah.
wasn't enough money in the sport. Whereas now it is different, and obviously there is money in the sport, and people like yourself are able to do it as a primary focus, but still not that's not a particularly deep field of people, is it? They're able to literally live as a professional trail runner. Um,
Yeah, and that just I would say I came into that just a little over 2 years ago when I quit my tech job. I was still working
really,
as a senior program manager at a tech company for mergers and acquisitions up until July 7th of 2023 was my last
really,
day. Yeah,
wow,
so just until recently. Yeah.
crazy. I mean, like, could you have done it earlier if you would have had a huge change in lifestyle and said, "Look, I'm willing to make a load of sacrifices to go all in on this," or it was just like literally not financially feasible to buy food and pay rent and just be a runner before then?
Um, I probably had enough money to, saved up just from life savings, but I that just felt too risky for me. Admittedly, I'm a very, fiscally I'm very conservative with my money, like, I don't like to take big chances, especially with I mean, I've been working since I was, 14 and a half, 15 and a half, since I legally could, just kinda, providing for myself, so I don't know. It just would have felt too big of a jump, but yeah, not until 2 years ago when I signed with Adidas was I like, "Okay, I can do this," I can
Nice.
manage it and stuff, yeah.
Cool. It's interesting because that kind of ties back to what you were saying about your parents kind of saying if you want to go to college and get a university degree and spend 4 years there, you're probably going to have to get a scholarship. It's probably not something that we can fund. So maybe it's just, yeah, your background has kind of raised you to be a little bit frugal and kind of sensible with money and not waste it.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I mean, my parents are very self-made and I respect them a lot. And where I grew up, parents were working all the time. Like some of them had 2 jobs and that was just kind of like the demographics I was growing up around. So, yeah, I just respect it. Like it can if you're done with it, it could be gone very fast.
Yeah, for sure. So, like, it's probably a bit of a cliche question, but what were What were the biggest changes for you 2 years ago when you signed with Adidas and quit the job and fully committed? Did you have similar issues to what a lot of other people experience where they start to kind of try and make the most of training and end up overtraining, getting injured, and actually taking a back step? Or were you kind of aware of that and you planned for it? How did you handle that transition?
Yeah, the first thing I noticed is how tired I was because I started getting so much more sleep, and, yeah, the first, like, 2 to 3 months, I just felt like this surge of energy that I never had before. Like I said, like, since I was in high school, I've been working, going to school, and sports, like, my schedule's been super packed, and then working in tech, like, initially, working to get the title that I wanted, like, I was hustling, 50, 60 hours a week and eventually got to settle to 40 hours a week. Um, but and I was running on top of that all the time. So it was always kind of just like squeezing it in, like not quite ever taking a break. And I was always rushing. And so once I quit my job, I remember I had a track workout and I didn't have anywhere to go afterwards. Like I didn't have to rush to a meeting. And I was like, wow, this is really nice. And so that was the first thing I noticed was a surge of energy. And my coach and I at the time, I had a different coach when I first quit my tech job. We kind of aligned that, we shouldn't do anything crazy. Um, and that found me like already near immediate like step up in my performances. However, like, going into last year's OCC, we definitely, like, cranked it a little more, and I was overcooked, um, and, it's never just the training, it's everything else involved, but as the story goes, for anyone who doesn't know me, I'll let you know, but OCC is, like, the biggest 50K, I would say, in the world, and on the final downhill, I was pretty much sending it as best as I could, and I had a really bad ankle roll where I fractured my cuboid and, partially tore my peroneus longus tendon, so it's, like, on the outside, and um, what's it called? Some of the cuboid ripped off when the tendon got torn, and so that was a pretty big injury, which is crazy because that was my first injury in over a decade, uh,
Wow.
which was pretty, poetic considering I just quit my job, like, a year before,
But that's not
um
even the cliched injury of like overtraining, getting a stress fracture. That's like a traumatic mid-race
Exactly.
break. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, because I had a couple stress fractures in like, early on in college when I didn't quite know how to balance everything, and that was the last time I'd had a major injury. Oh, I guess I had rolled my ankle once out of college when I fell in a bouldering gym, but anyways, yeah, so to have such a big traumatic injury 1 year into my life as, like, a true professional athlete, I was like, "What am I doing? Like, this is crazy." So that's been quite the journey. Yeah.
I mean, we've got to come back to that, but I want to go back to before I forget because
Yeah.
you're literally just saying the biggest change when you left the job and you realize like, oh, I'm not having to rush to a meeting. I literally just squeezed in my second run of the day to rush back to do this podcast. So I know exactly what you mean because my entire life is somehow trying to squeeze, whatever, like 12 hours a week of training, which isn't a crazy amount, but it's quite a lot around like a similar to what you're saying, like a 50-hour a week kind of job that I absolutely love, but that I work really hard at. And then family too. I feel like I'm never not rushing, and it's always the workout or the run that's being sacrificed, or the gym session's cut short, or I'm a bit tired going into the key session for the week and stuff. But I guess priorities, right? You can't do everything to 100%. So time and a
Yeah.
place. Uh,
Yeah, definitely.
yeah.
And I will say that's evolved as I mean, we could get into it, as well, but, like, my understanding of now, I feel like I'm a better professional than I was 2 years ago. I've, like, built a team around me, so my Mondays are pretty crammed because it's, like, I'm meeting with my coach, my nutritionist, my sports psych, and that those kinda get blocky here and there, and then I also have a podcast, so but it's just, like, it's busy enough to make sure I don't just, like, what's it called? Don't have a schedule at all.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it seems like based on the way you've the way you've just described your life and all the things you do, you're probably you don't strike me as someone who wants to not have a fairly full schedule because you're used to
Yeah.
doing so many things. It probably feel quite jarring to just be, I don't know, sat on the sofa playing Xbox trying to recover and eat and just
Yeah.
run twice a day. Well, let's come back to that, but to the OCC thing because I was at OCC last year. I DNF'd. I know the descent very well. Ran that descent quite a lot of times down from Flagere, down from Brabant, I suppose. But yeah, pretty technical descent. How was your race up to that point? Like, how were things until you had the injury?
Um, Disappointing for me, I
Oh,
guess.
really?
Yeah, because I had podiumed in 22, and then the following year, I had gotten one of the stomach bugs that a lot of people got, so I DNF'd, and so, yeah, the whole goal coming into this year was another podium, and I think I was, like, too aggressive in the beginning. Like, I'm a pretty conservative racer, and I think I came in a little overcooked, so I felt like the whole day was just, like, an unnecessarily amount of, like, mental challenge that
Yeah.
I did to myself, and so I felt like going into the final climb, mentally, I wasn't firing on all cylinders. Like, I didn't have that fight in me that you should have on, like, those big days, and I remember, like, crossing the hill, and I was like, "You know what? If you run the best downhill that you've ever done, you could still maybe catch 1 or 2 people. So let's just do that, like, no F's given, just send it all the way." So I did that, and I realized how fast I was running, not by looking at my watch, I just felt it because 'cause I've also run that last downhill a handful of times.
Yeah.
Um, and I was like, I actually could potentially catch one person in front of me. But what was funny is when I was cresting the hill, I had everyone tell me, I'm like, who are the women in front of me? And it was from back to front, Caitlin Fielder, Sarah Alonso, Clemente Giaffre. And I was like, okay, I literally have to run the best downhill of my entire
Yeah.
life
Not
to
exactly
catch.
weak downhill
Yeah,
runners. Yeah.
exactly, all incredible downhill runners, and then ahead of them was Judith Weeder, but I knew she was just gone by that point.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, I was running incredibly fast, to be honest, like, I'll just call it what it is, and it was, like, 3K from the bottom. It's, like, when you pass this, like, red cafe, and it
Yeah.
suddenly becomes runnable,
Yeah.
and I, like, look back to that time, and I'm pretty sure I don't know kilometers, but I was running, like, 5-minute pace, like, down this hill, and I just, like, was running through this water, and I chipped a rock. There's, like, these little streams, and my shoes just got a little too squiggly, and my whole foot, like, fell on itself, and it was so, traumatic that I then fell into the trees, and I was, like, there for a moment, and I was like, I might not finish this race, and I am so close to the bottom. But then I heard cheers of the woman who was behind me starting to catch up, and so I think adrenaline was just like, the greatness that it is. It, like, shot me with adrenaline. I was able to get up and finish, and then, yeah, crazy enough, I ran the fastest time ever. I tied with Caitlin Fielder for that downhill,
Even
segment.
with the full.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I looked back, and I actually was one of the fastest people that entire week with Caitlin. I think we were both, like, in the top 30, and I was like, "Wow, if I didn't break my foot, that would've been,
Yeah. Right.
legendary."
Yeah, it's funny
But
because I was like, I was kind of right in the midst of the women's race for the first kind of half of it because I remember going up the first climb with like Sarah Alonso and Caitlin, and then I remember passing those guys on the descent into Trion, and then I remember having like Tabor and Meow Yao
yeah,
behind me coming out of Trion, but then I remember Meow Yao coming past me at the top of the Col de Bomb climb. Oh, my hamstring was like ruined, and she came past like an absolute train, and I couldn't understand how she could be like her breathing was insane. It sounded like she was doing like a threshold, like a 3 minute threshold rep, and she flew past, and I just thought she no chance, like she's exploding, and then obviously not.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, anyway, I kind of just
That's
it's
cool
interesting to
for
hear about your side
OC.
of it. Yeah, yeah, totally. But no, that's crazy that you had the fall and then had enough adrenaline to still finish the descent and run a fast time. Because, like I say, that bit's super runnable. Um, that's just down to what you've got left in your legs. But the top bit is really technical and, well, not really technical, but kind of rocky, switchbacky. It's not the fastest.
Yeah, you gotta watch your footing for sure.
Yeah,
There's, like, those kind of, like, awkwardly shaped rocks that you can slip on really quickly. They're, like, the size of your shoe.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. Okay. Well, crazy. So, how long was the recovery off the back of that?
Oh, man. They originally told me they originally thought it would take, like, 10 weeks total, 6 weeks for the bone, 10 weeks for the tendon. Um, And I was out of the boot at, like, week 7 or 8, and I started to they said I could, like, start to, like, strengthen the tendon and work on it and stuff like that, and then eventually walk, jog. So that brought me to November. Um, yeah, because it's, like, September to October, the bone, and then by the end of October, I got cleared to, like, try to start walk jogging. And I remember just going through that process, and there was something just off in my gut because it just didn't feel right. Like, they told me it would be, like, a little painful, right? As everything was stiff for, a month and a half or so. But it just wasn't going away, and they're like, "Give it another week, give it another week." And so that was a whole month of, like, I don't know, this feels it doesn't feel like it should. And so then I went back and got more imaging, and I found out that's when I found out actually that the tendon had pulled part of the bone off, and that was still healing, because originally they only did an X-ray and MRI, and then you only get that second part from a CT scan, something like that. Um, so it was kind of a bummer because, you only get so much of that natural inflammatory response, the initial injury. So and the foot is, like, such a hard place to get blood flow in
Yeah.
general. And
Yeah.
so that's when they suggested PRP, which is a plasma-rich, oh my
Platelet
gosh,
rich plasma.
a platelet-rich plasma,
Yeah.
thank you, shot. And so I got an Angel PRP, which is, like, 7 to 8 times the normal amount. And
What does
so
that mean? What's
they
the
just
angel part?
they take more blood. I don't know why
Okay.
it's called Angel, but it's basically just to
Okay.
say, like, instead of taking a quarter size of blood, it's like a ring of quarters of blood.
Right.
Um,
Okay.
and so, yeah, I ended up getting that done in early December, finally, and, that was extremely painful when that actually happened.
Really?
And I had yeah, because the space that they put all of that blood in, like, imagine, like, a little handful into, like, the smallest crevice of your foot, It's basically called the cuboid tunnel. Anyway, so I was with my family on vacation. The plan was to cross train, and I remember, like, taking an Uber. It's, like, dead of winter. We were in Germany visiting my brother, and I, like, go to this gym, and I can't even get in it, like, during Christmas break. And I was like, "You know what? I'm just gonna take the rest of the month off." Like, this feels like I'm at the point, like, all of my fitness is gone anyways. There's no reason to, like, push it. Like, I'm just gonna let my body do its thing, and so I ended up taking the rest of December off and then just starting back at it. I think my first jog run was, like, January 20th or
Wow,
something.
that's such a
Yeah.
long time after, like, start of September.
I know. Yeah, so it was
Wow.
much longer than I anticipated. Yep.
So what else did you fill that time with? Like, because I mean, you couldn't have really, like you just said, cross training's gonna be really difficult because you can't really put pressure on your foot. Um, what did you do?
The first round, swimming and biking,
Okay.
but yeah, to be honest, James, like, I don't know, there was just something in my gut where I didn't really cross train that hard. I, was working with a sports psych, which I thought was really helpful, and one of the things we talked about was just letting the fire die out, and that was something I was really scared, like, I was holding on to that. I'm like he's like, "You're like, physiologically, the fitness is already kind of gone, like, there's nothing to salvage at this
Yeah,
point."
there's nothing to save. It's almost like just
Yeah,
mental
just
well-being
yeah.
to do something.
Exactly, so I just shut it down, and it was the longest break I'd had in, over a decade, and it was, like, really easy, actually, like, once I accepted it. And then, when I started to run again, that's when it started to get hard, but then, again, with the PRP, I was like, "You know what? Let's just take more time off." So I took more time off, and December was, like, fully off for 2 weeks, and then I started doing, like, Pilates, which I did a little bit of that in the first round too. Swimming and cycling were, like, my 3 things.
Interesting. But then again, I mean, you never know, right? Because an injury that takes that long to recover from, and stopping training for that long, you could see as a huge negative, and you could look at it as like, look at all this potential fitness I've lost, and I could have done more training, I could have done more racing, I could be in a better place now for this year. But then there's another side of it, which is like you've probably never had that time off for your entire life because you've been running and taking part in sport and busy doing stuff. So maybe actually in the long run, because you've got so much of your career left ahead of you, um, maybe it could be a positive. Maybe that was like a really nice, huge mid-season break, and now you're going to be super fresh. Like you don't really know. I mean, how do you feel now? Obviously, we're months and months and months after that. I know you've raced since. Obviously, you're back training and stuff. When did you have your first session this year where you felt like, okay, I'm kind of back. Like I can really push. I've got confidence. Everything feels normal. I'm starting to build some fitness. Did that come quite soon, or was that like springtime? How long did that take?
To be honest, like last week.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
Right.
But it was kinda interesting because like, I, started walk jogging, and then February and March were, like, extremely conservative. Like, I ended up switching coaches. I'm now coached by Tom Evans,
Oh,
who's
cool.
another professional athlete, yeah. And, yeah, we just worked on building a base, and I was signed up for a race in mid-April and unfortunately rolled that same ankle. So that came with, like, some mental just mental things I needed to work through. Because admittedly, like, when I first started running again, I had no problem on the trails. I was like, "I'll be fine," I trusted everything, and that ankle roll in April really did a toll on me mentally where I got to the point after that where I was, like, walking downhill. Like, I was so scared to run
Oh,
downhill.
wow, really? Okay.
Yeah,
Because you're
it
obviously
was
like a pretty confident downhill runner before, and that was one of your strengths.
Yeah, yeah, and it was, yeah, I had to work through it and just kinda, like, take it little by little and accept that that actually was pretty normal, like, when you have a traumatic injury. But yeah, the ankle roll really did me in because I was running down the most easy downhill, like a downhill I've done tons of times, and it did the same exact thing, and so I wasn't able to race. Um, and so, yeah, so then from there, let's see, that was mid-April, then I switched gears to Broken Arrow, which initially when I put on my calendar in January, I was like, "Oh, I'll be firing on all cylinders by Broken Arrow," but,
By June, yeah.
yeah, here I am end of April crying because I'm, like, scared to run downhill, and I'm, like, managing that. But it slowly but surely came back. I just kind of applied a very simple philosophy, just, like, take it little by little and, like, what I'm comfortable with and don't push it too much, kinda like how you would teach a child how to do something, right? Like, you don't wanna
Yeah.
traumatize them. And it started to come back, and I jumped in a race beginning of June called the GoPro Mountain Games, and it's a really fast 10K, and a 10K where people have rolled their ankles because it's so fast. It's in Vail, Colorado, and super smooth, mostly single track, but there's a lot of roots, and, it's like a very common tune-up here in America because there's a lot of prize money for it being such a short race, so everyone finds themselves there. Um, so that helped a little bit, like, with the downhill, just, like, being in a race environment. I did, like, hesitate and end up losing on the final downhill, but it was, like, such a big reminder. It's like, "Okay, now we just have the last bit," you know?
Yeah.
Um and then we had a couple more weeks of fitness, and yeah, I just, like, wasn't confident at all in my fitness. Like, I wasn't running very much, but everything was with intention, and I lined up for that race being like, "Okay, if we get top 5, cool." And by the way, so Broken Arrow 46K was the USA team selection race this
Yeah.
year. So if you were the top 3, you made the USA team for world championships. And yeah, I it just came back as the race was going on, which was really cool, and ultimately made up 4 minutes in the last 6 miles, which were
Wow.
all downhill. So that's when I was like, "Okay, now my downhill is, like, I think it's back now," because that was, I would say, like, it's roughly like Chamonix terrain, I would say, like that final
Yeah, I've
part.
I've seen some of the Broken Arrow course and what that terrain looks like, and like you said, USA trials, so deep field, pulling all that time back on the last descent, that must be quite satisfying.
Extremely satisfying,
Big,
yeah.
big confidence boost. Yeah, so you're in the team. So that's for the short course.
Yes, I did, decline it, though. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Right. Interesting. Well, how much did you look at the venue for Worlds this year at the Canfranc course and the terrain and stuff? Or was it just never, it just doesn't fit with plans?
It's a little bit of both. Yeah,
Okay.
I looked on, like, whatever I could grab on social media and friends going out there to the course and stuff, and it looks, beautifully very difficult, and
Yeah.
I think it's just a course that would require a lot of mental energy because it's so technical in some parts, and I know that time of year, you might get good weather, you might get bad weather, and, coming off of, hopefully, CCC, fingers crossed, that's still happening, I just felt like it was not the I mean, I've had 2 injuries in the last year, major, and then another ankle
Yeah.
roll. I'm just like, I don't need to run anything overly fatigued at this point. Yeah.
And would the selectors have let you do CCC and Worlds if you'd chosen to?
Yeah, yeah, we have a couple
Because
people
yeah,
on Team USA do that because
interesting.
I know other countries don't allow that,
Yeah,
yeah.
I don't think the GB team is. I think they're well, depends who you are as well. Like, if you're Tom, then maybe it's a
Yeah,
different answer. I don't know. Which it probably should be. But no, I think the general consensus was OCC's okay, CCC or UTMB isn't, was what I'd heard.
yeah,
But yeah, Cam Frank looks super technical and like a lot of elevation, or even just, I mean, technical is such a broad term because, like you say, you could have a bit of anything, but like rocky, loose, kind of
yeah,
ankle
yeah.
rolly.
Ankle rolly for sure, yeah.
Pretty much, yeah. Okay, cool. So, okay, so that's a big goal for this year then. CCC,
Yeah,
shipping distance.
hopefully. I mean, I just broke my pinky toe last week, and so now I'm managing that, which kind of is just I don't know, I feel like when my injury first happened last year, it felt very, like, heavy and traumatic. It was my biggest injury in my entire life, I would say. Um, this just at first felt like a slap in the face. I was like, "Really? Pinky toe? You couldn't take a pinky
Yeah,
finger? Any of my
yeah.
fingers? If I hand, you could take
W- Was
something
it whilst
else?"
running or was it
No, it was
unrelated
at
again?
home. Yeah,
Oh,
it
it's
was at
so
home.
annoying.
I
So
know.
annoying. I mean, at least, well, I don't know the extent of it, but like, how bad can a little toe be? What's the
Yeah,
recovery off the back of that now? It's more just a bit of a pain management thing in like a few weeks or?
exactly, yeah. So I'm cross training now and then hopefully can run next week is kind of the
Uh,
goal. Yeah.
yeah. Well, yeah, that is a little bit ridiculous. Okay, cool. Well, exciting. So stepping up into that, would that be your first competitive 100K?
Yeah, yeah. I originally was gonna try and run Canyons 100K in April.
Oh, that was
This was
the
way
April race.
back. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was actually gonna run Lake Sonoma Marathon, sorry.
Okay. Right.
But
Right.
I was originally gonna try and make that my first 100K was my point. So yeah, it's a pretty beefy 100K to have at my first go, and it's very competitive, which has all led to me having actually no expectations at all. Like, I wanna compete, but I think I just need to be kinda give myself grace based on all the factors involved.
Nice. Cool. Well, what's the thought process behind going up in distance? Like, obviously, I'm sure you've had that question probably a hundred times. And I know with the podcast and stuff, you guys talk a lot about sub ultra running, and that's obviously kind of would have been your niche previously. So, what's the appeal?
Just trying something new. I've been running trail running for, like, 8 years now, and I've never run further than OCC, and so and I also just I don't know, deep in my heart, I actually don't think I'm naturally inclined to shorter races. I think I've made myself good at them, but I think my skill set will is better suited for longer distances. I'm good at kinda just finding, like, that threshold pocket and staying there for a long time, and I'm definitely like a back half runner. And so, yeah, I don't know if I'll have that experience my first time, especially with it being CCC. I mean, there's just so many variables, but I want to try and give it a couple of goes and see where it lands me. And admittedly, OCC, 3 years in a row, I just feel like I wanted to shake things up. Like,
Yeah.
I think there's still maybe something there, but I think I got a little too narrow-minded that I'm like, "Okay, I was 3rd. Like, let's see if I could win it one year." And that
Yeah.
just became the goal, and, I came to I'm like, "That's a really hard goal." Only one person wins each year. I still don't think it's impossible, but it's a very, like, draining goal to be like, "My goal is to try and win this." Um, and you know what? To say that I got a podium at OCC is still a very big deal,
It's
and
huge. Yeah.
yeah, so just, like, giving myself, like, "Danny, that was really good," and, like, you're allowed to try other things, even if that still is, like, a goal that you have. Because I just became like, "I need to do this until I do it," you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, it completely makes sense. Like, even though it's your job, you still need to be like inspired and excited and motivated by the goal. And whether that is like a time or a place in a particular race or completing a distance. I mean, like, obviously, you're not just going to complete the distance, but yeah, like you say, new experience, new course, like different distance. W- In terms of time running during a race, so OCC would have been your longest time on feet during a race. That's a really clunky way of putting it, but
Yeah,
you've never
yours
run a race with more elevation that was slower that took you longer than OCC. Okay,
Yes, that's
cool.
correct.
So, okay, so big step up. So how much did you pay attention to, like, Tony's performance last year or other people who were maybe kind of, because it's obviously quite common for people to perform well at OCC and then move up to CCC. Obviously, like, Francesco would be another example this year, right? He's
He's
stepping.
moving up to CCC, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And also, well, you won't know this person probably, but Lewis, my normal co-host, my coach, his wife Gemma, um, just signed a contract with Hocker. So that's her
Oh,
first
nice.
professional contract, and she raced OCC last year, and she's now stepping up to CCC. So it's kind of like quite, yeah, pertinent at the moment. Is there anything specific that concerns you the most? Would it be the fueling? Would it just be the unknown of that length of race? Would it be like the muscular fatigue or whatever? I mean, you're surrounded by people who've probably done the race. Obviously, Tom knows the course. You've run half the course a few times pretty quickly. What's the biggest unknown? What's the biggest concern?
Um, Definitely the length of race, just like time on feet, like what happens after Champé Lock? Like, how does
Right.
that feel? And it was interesting because I was like, I've rewatched the live stream a couple times now, like from start to finish, and kind of just like taking notes and stuff. But having had been at Champé Lock in person last year, it was very likened to Forest Hill at Western States.
Okay.
Completely different races, but just, like, the faces you see on people, like, some people looked like they were in a sheer panic realizing that they're halfway through the race. Other people are just, like, super confident, smooth, others are, like, hunting, and so I think that's really a place where the emotions, like, start to take a hold of you, also because it's your first aid station where you see your people, and I feel like that kind of starts to unveil, like, how you really feel because you feel kinda open around them. Um so yeah, I think it's just what happens after Champé Lock, I don't know, and
Yeah.
just, like, working on kinda like a mental script or, like, mind mapping as to, like, what cues do I want to remember when I'm there, you know? Like, staying curious, "This is why you chose this," was to find this out, like, about yourself. Like I said, like, I think my skills lend better to 100K, and I kinda wanna challenge myself. I'm like, "This is literally your chance to figure that out or to
Yeah.
try," for your first go,
Totally.
so and poles, if I'm being honest. I've never
Okay.
used poles in my life, and
Have you been
that's been a
practicing
big
with poles, or
I have been practicing a lot, and,
how
yeah,
have you found
just
it?
like actually, they're pretty sick, things that surprisingly things. One, they actually raise your heart rate, like, when you're really moving,
Hmm.
which I found really interesting, and, like, if you're, like, trying to run with them, and then, yeah, just trying to find a method that works for me too, because there's so many different, like, patterns to use them. I'm also not a skier, I'm a snowboarder, and so
Yeah.
I've, like, never had something in my hands to help, like, with balance and stuff. If I find myself needing them on the downhills for quads, that's also an interesting thing. I just don't like having things in my hands. Like, I'm used to balancing and, like, running fast. So,
Yeah.
that's also kind of the interesting factor, yeah.
It is a really interesting thing because I'm a snowboarder too, but I did a lot of I used to be a
Oh,
split board guide.
backcountry?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
And I lived in Canada, so like I was one of the few. I was like a hard boot split board snowboarder carrying poles, so kind of like a bit of a weird crossover thing. But I got really used to poles and got really good with poles because you kind of had to be able to split ski, but your heels aren't attached, so it's kind of clunky. So you need the poles, and you're always trying to keep up with skiers or clients who are on skis, and you're going to be there first. So you get really good with poles. So I started to think like, oh, maybe I'll use poles in like longer 50K races, but I could never find a place for it. Like I kind of felt at the 50K distance or like, racing for less than say like 5 hours or something. Um, it made me feel less like a runner and more like I was out hiking. I don't know. It just felt
Yeah.
like more stuff. Like I'd rather run with like a hand flask and a belt than like a huge pack and loads of stuff. So maybe it was more just like a personal comfort thing, but definitely a course like CCC, most people would be using them. So it seems like it's got to be at least worth experimenting with.
Totally. Yeah, I think that's what it is. Everyone I've asked, like, on the female side, they're like, "You should definitely try and use poles." Yeah, it's just, like, when to use them because 'cause I'm so used to just, like, power hiking with hands on knees, and I know Tony had broken poles before Champé Lock last year, like, one of them wasn't working, and so that's why she wasn't using poles, but then after that, she's like, "I used them more than I thought I would." So yeah.
Like you say on the downhill as well. I remember when I was trying to kind of practice with them and even like descending through on service roads that had like drainage ditches, almost using them to kind of like vault and reduce that impact of like jumps, which sounds really weird,
Yeah.
but it was like cool. It saved your quads quite a lot. But
Yeah.
then, yeah, I don't know. It is odd. I guess you just train.
Yeah.
Yeah. But raising your heart rate when you're using them at the same pace, I wonder why that would be. Is because you're like engaging your arms and your back as well. So you're actually using more.
Yeah, I don't know, I was surprised by that as well. Maybe I was just inefficient when I initially found that as well.
Yeah,
Yeah,
maybe. Okay, cool. Interesting. Um, well, that's super exciting. So you've got what?
basically a
A
month, I
month?
think.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, cool. So what's the plan of attack from now until then? I'm assuming obviously you're talking with Tom pretty regularly. Obviously you can't train right now, but um, based on what this year's been like training wise and stuff, is it more a case of long runs and kind of race pace stuff rather than worrying too much about trying to do higher intensity and like increased fitness? Is a bit more just straight into specificity, or what are you looking?
yeah, definitely way less intensity, like, compared to OCC previous years. Um, my long runs aren't actually that long. I do more of them, actually, just, like, not super long runs, which is definitely a difference from my last coach, is he just kept making my long runs longer, whereas with Tom, I think at most I'm having, like, 3 a week, but they're pretty, like, spread out, and they're, like, 2 to 3 hours. So nothing, like,
Okay,
too
interesting.
crazy. Yeah. My volume overall is, like, high-ish. It's not the highest it's ever been, it's kind of, like, right a tier below that, but it is a mix of running and cross training still. So, like, I'm still quite a bit on the bike, to be honest.
Okay, what does that look like time wise then? Running and biking per week, like on an average kind of decent chunky week.
I think I've been averaging, like, 18 hours a week.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah,
So, not too crazy, and then add in, like, weight training and stuff like that. Um Yeah, I think the running's been like 12 hours a week, maybe 13
yeah,
hours a week. Yeah. So just very sustainable, which I
yeah.
have found is really, really nice for me. And yeah, I mean, before I broke my pinky toe, like I finally had a workout where I was like, you know what? I'm going to be at the front of this race in some capacity,
No,
like, top 5 or something like that. Like I was feeling that confident. And so I'm kind of just seeing this last week because that happened last Tuesday. So yeah, it's been basically a week now. It's kind of like we were maintaining fitness, or maybe I just took a rest week. And so hoping we can get a couple more long runs in because I will go over to Europe in not this weekend, but next weekend to check out the beginning part of the course. So
I was gonna say, have you seen the first come here, the
not
climb
yet.
come
I've
here?
heard it's
Okay.
so pretty though.
Oh,
Have you?
it looks. I mean, I've not run it, no, but I've been. So Gemma's over there on the Hocker camp at the moment, and she's been out there for the last 2 or 3 weeks doing a bit of training, kind of seeing the course and stuff. Um, but I've spoken to quite a few people that have run CCC, and that first climb's one that everyone always talks about. Yeah, I mean, it looks spectacular. It's long.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
pretty,
Yeah.
but it's
Yeah.
on that edge of like, is it runnable? Is it not runnable? I guess it depends. But and with it being the start of the race, you look at people like, I don't know, Petter Angdahl and Hayden and stuff, and the pace they do that first climb, you're kind of like, is that too hard, or is that the tactic for this race? Or I can never work that out. This whole kind of people seem to go out, or the best in the world, who obviously know what they're doing, seem to go out harder than is sustainable. And I'm just always interested in that kind of mindset of like, I don't know if they're necessarily trying to bank time or if it's more just like you feel fresh, so the effort feels easier, but actually you're moving really well. How do you think about that? Do you look to like evenly? Well, you already kind of said that you tend to like run through the field at the back end of the race. So you generally conservative starter and then try and do even splits. Is that the general mentality, or?
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely. I would say I'm an even splitter, which is something I'm very proud of. But like, it's actually really funny that you bring that up because that's something I have been like sourcing from other professionals that have run CCC because I realized that the women's winner the last 3 years has always been in first at the top of that climb. The men's winner, not the case. Not always the case, I should say, because like Hayden was back in like 15th or something like that at the
yeah,
top of that climb. The other year that he won, 2018, same thing where he was like back in 15, 20th. I think Petter's year that he did the course record, he just was wire to wire, and that was an insane performance. And then the in between year, was that John Albin?
I
Um,
think John Alban, yeah, because it
yeah.
was Luke Grenfell Shaw who we had on the podcast, who like kind of bit of a friend of the podcast. I'm pretty sure he led. to the top of that climb and then like slowed down significantly later in the day.
Yeah, so John also wasn't off the front. So I kind of been sourcing, I'm like, why is it the women's winner, is leading? I think if you look at the last 3 winners, 2 of them being my really close friends, like, all 3 of them are front runners. So I think they feel most comfortable up front, like having
Yeah.
control of the race. Tony McCann, Ingvild Kaspersen, Blondine Learangel, they, like, are all front runners. Like, that's just how they race, is they go out fast. But I do think this year's women's field, it may not necessarily be the case that who is leading that climb. I think it'll be more akin to the men's races, just because it's so deep this year. So, anyways, my question to people has been like, "I'm a back half runner. Like, does that work here?"
I think it works. It has
And
to.
it does. Yeah.
Like it just does. Every world record that's longer than an 800-meter is a negative split. Like, well, no, I mean it depends, right? But like
Yeah.
generally speaking, the way to race is to run even splits. That's just the way to race. But it feels like in longer distance trail running, either I don't know, like the sport's not caught up to the point where we're quite where maybe it's just not at the level it will be at in 10 years' time. Because right now, these people, I'm saying these people, you're one of these people. The best
Yeah.
people in the sport are absolutely incredible, but you look back 10 years ago and it kind of looks, it's like quite antiquated. Like, oh, these guys are doing things really weirdly and not cooling and not taking
Yeah.
any carbs on. Like, maybe the thing that people are going to learn is like banking time and racing at the front, even though it feels like you need to do it right now, is misguided because how can it not be? I don't know. Just like the logical part of my brain can't understand how you maintaining an even pace and finishing strong to a better time can't be more optimal than blowing up in the last quarter of the race because you went out too hard. I just don't
Yeah.
get it. But they all
No.
do it and then they win. So I don't get it.
Yeah, I think it's also just, like, the mentality, like, the understanding of what an ultra is, right? Like, and how long it is, and how our physiology matches our perception, like, of literally what we're seeing through our eyes. So if you see someone go off the front, you're like, "Well, I can't run that pace." And so I think it's also just, like, a mental game for the people that are in the race who are being gapped, right? Like, I'm trying to like, I think this is why I'm a good closer, is, like, I am never deterred by there being space, and so I'm able to be like, I mean, the year I podiumed, like, at Triant, I was like, "How far is podium?" They're like, "12 minutes," and I was like, I got this. And I remember my friend being like, "They're too far." And I'm like, "Nope, I got this." And just being like, I can close that in 30K. Like that's
Yeah.
nothing. And so like in these longer ultras, when you see someone go off the front, you're like, "Oh, I can't close that." Or someone in this race is like, "They're too far." It's like, well, you actually have 6 hours of racing. Like if
Yeah.
you get into that mental space, I'm like, Marianne Hogan's great at that. Ruth Croft did that last year at UTMB, where it's like you just have to, like, stay in it, for the
Exactly.
hours and hours, and so, yeah, I think it's, like, the mental fortitude matching the physiology to the strategics that are happening in the race can help with, like, back half runners, essentially.
100%. Like it's definitely a confidence thing. Like if you're comfortable going through first aid station 30th overall, knowing that you're going to finish top 10,
Yeah.
but that's the strategy and you've planned it and you've done the statistical analysis, you know that that's what it will be. And then if you have the performance that you planned and you don't get there, then you were never going to anyway because
Yeah.
they were better on the day. So like there's nothing lost.
Yeah.
um but then again, I totally understand this. Different people like to race in different ways, and like we had Caleb on 2 days after Western and chatting to him,
Oh, nice.
and he tends to go out quite hard and he quite likes it that way, and he did that in Gran Canaria, he did that at Western States. um but he had other reasons. He was like, well, it's cooler, so I want to bank time and I'm better on technical terrain, so I want to kind of lead through the first section. um so yeah, well, it's interesting to see
Yeah.
how it all plays out. Cool, awesome. Well, how's it been being coached by Tom? How did that come about? Because obviously, well, were you on the same team when you started that? Obviously he's now Essex, but
We overlapped a year, I think. Yeah.
okay,
Maybe
cool.
or maybe 2 years, actually. Um, yeah, I mean, like, we were, like, homies on the team, but, like, with the team, it's kind of interesting. Our team is so big, and we have team events, and so the likelihood of you crossing paths at team events, the bigger the team gets, becomes smaller.
Yeah.
Um, and so, yeah, I'd hung out with a couple of times, but I wouldn't say we were, like, as we are now. But, yeah, I was looking for a coaching change. I felt like it was time. Again, just, like, at that nexus or kind of like crossroads in my career with me being injured. I felt like I just needed to revamp some things and bring some different energy. And so I kind of like surveyed a bunch of coaches, different athletes, like how their relationships with their coaches were. And I learned about Tom from Tony McCann and Ingvild Casperson, who are two really good friends of mine. And then I'd recently heard that he started coaching Elsie Davis as well. And so, yeah, I chatted with him and just, like, felt like we were cut from the same cloth, like, we saw things the same way, and I felt like he was going to be involved in my training at a level that I felt was perfect for, like, the team I was building around me. Like, he does the coaching of the running, and that's it, which I really wanted. I didn't want, like, an all-in-one person because I don't think that's possible, and then I would build everyone else into it as well, so yeah, he just seemed like, akin to, like, the same kind of kindred soul, I guess. Yeah.
Cool. Nice. So, yeah, it's super interesting. And
He's a great
yeah,
coach.
athlete coach. Yeah, well, that's
Yeah,
it, isn't it? Like he's got that first-hand experience, but he's actually still at the peak of his career. Whereas like a lot of really good coaches obviously were great athletes, but now are just coaches. So it's interesting to kind of see how that balances for him.
totally, yeah, and that was something I considered, but again, for the level that he was gonna be involved, I was like, "Okay, I feel super comfortable with this," and yeah, he's just wickedly smart guy, very, like, well-studied in all his stuff, which is I
Yeah,
appreciate.
he definitely always comes across as quite analytical and kind of digs into the detail and probably has a million different studies and spreadsheets about efficiency with poles and stuff
Yeah.
that he's done himself on the treadmill with a mask on. Sick. Well, that's cool. I did want to touch on the podcast as well because I mean
Yeah.
I've been listening to your podcast for a while. The one that I listened to first, actually, well, I think it probably was I was signed up to run the 50K at Canyons this year, and I know you've raced that race before and you talked about it on the podcast and stuff, and I was kind of trying to trawl around and find podcasts with good runners who have run that race just to try and understand what it's like because I'm over in the UK and you can look at a few pictures and like go on Google Maps and stuff and get a feel, but it's nice to hear like yeah, I don't know, hear firsthand from someone who's run well there and stuff. So I listened to that and then kind of got quite into it because I think you got quite a lot of alignment on things in terms of sometimes feeling like the kind of marathon to 50K distance can be a little bit overlooked and a little bit overshadowed. And you've got Golden Trail, like super short, TV friendly, exciting. Like I love to watch that stuff and consume that content. It's really fun style of racing. And then longer stuff like UTMB, even CCC to some degree, but really UTMB and Western States that gets all of that attention. And then the crazy super long mega 250s and craziness that people are doing. But 50Ks seem to kind of like not really get talked about or watched as much. But to me, it's almost should be the opposite. It's like that sweet spot where people are moving well, running, it's entertaining, it's a proper race, but it's long enough where like a story can play out. And so anyway, I don't know. I mean, all running is interesting and fun, and I'd watch a 1500 as much as I'd watch UTMB. But yeah, it was a cool niche that you guys found in the stuff you were talking about, and just resonated with it. So yeah, I'm a fan of the show, I guess.
Thank you. I
Yeah.
appreciate that. Yeah, no,
What?
we started a couple years ago purely for that reason.
Yeah.
My friend MK Sullivan, who is the co-host, she's sponsored by Kraft. She just texted me. She's like, "Hey, you want to start like Sub Ultra podcast?" And at that point, I was still working. Actually, that was like winter of 2022, going into 23, and I was like, "Let me. I'm about to go for a run, and I think most clear when I'm running. So I'll text you after my run." And then after the run, I was like, "Yeah, let's do it." Because at that point, I had felt like I had a lot on my table or plate with like still working, but I knew that I was probably gonna quit that summer. And I was like, "This is the perfect project to like start before." And yeah, it's been a huge blast. It's like
Nice.
to your point, it's always so wild to me that as of what I know, maybe I only know of 2 podcasts that focus on short trail, which is us and the Steep Stuff podcast, and that's it. And, that just baffles me to all the points that you're making because I just think it's such a cool part of the sport that, yeah, deserves more attention than it gets sometimes.
Yeah, for sure. 100%. It's almost like the natural progression for people seems to be to go up in distance, generally speaking, especially for people who maybe not newer to the sport, but like amateur runners and people who are just doing it for fun. It's always like, when are you going to step up to 100K? When are you going to step up to 100 miler? People are now doing like 50K as their first ever race, and then they do one, and they're straight on to like,
Yeah.
running for 15 hours. Um, but yeah, I kind of feel like find a lane and like sit in it for a while and try and get better at that thing. But maybe I'm biased as well because I think my preference would be kind of a 4 hour race would probably be kind of perfect.
Yeah.
So maybe it's just what I feel like I'm better at as well. But yeah, no, it's really interesting. So you guys literally just started off as a passion project and thought it would be a fun, cool thing to do, or was somewhere in the back of your mind were you thinking this could be another kind of feather to the bow when I finish this career job and I move into being a professional runner, and maybe I need to kind of like diversify and have some other stuff to do? Was that part of it?
I would say it definitely was more of the first part, to be honest, like more of a passion project, and then it's evolved into that as we've, I don't know, we were just like, "Are we even gonna be good at this? We don't know." And so, yeah, just like a couple years later, we do some stuff with Free Trail, like we're doing a Sears and all preview with them next week, with Dylan Bowman. So every now and then we'll like jump on their trail gating depending on the races and where we're at and stuff like that. And I think we're gonna be doing a lot more of that. But yeah, I think it is for sure our goal that as we both start to phase out of our careers to bring more to the table because we have such a long list of things like we would like to do, but we just don't have the time right now or don't want to put the time into it. Like
Yeah.
we would love so much more to like travel to all the Golden Trail World Series races, do in-person interviews, more social media, more YouTube, just like just more cohesive media package, kind of like single track and free trail, but we have our own careers that we're focusing on right now, so that'll be a, decade maybe from now,
Yeah,
pursuit.
totally. I mean,
Yeah.
well, like Dylan's the trailblazer, I suppose, in that, isn't he? Like he does
Yeah.
that so well. And like you say, free trail and single track, like they're the two. And then you've got like you guys, you've got like the Boulder Boys, like people who are kind of currently active, like top level professional athletes who are doing it in a slightly more relaxed style, which for me personally is probably my preferred type of content because it feels a bit more, um, yeah, I don't know, casual and like listen to it on
Like
a long run.
conversation.
And
Yeah.
yeah, it's like nice and chill, doesn't really have a format. But then, like, yeah, Dylan and Finn and those guys take it to another level with the professionalism and turning it into like basically a proper media outlet, which is also really cool.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that was interesting how it's all evolving. So, how do you guys do it? Do you? I mean, obviously, you've got a lot of contacts in the industry, and I guess you're just interested in running and you're paying attention to all the races. So, is it literally just pretty off the cuff, or do you spend time like planning the production and like messaging guests? And do you have someone to help with that stuff? What does that look like?
It's all us, and it's
Okay,
mostly I mean, most of them are our friends or friends of friends. So, like, there's this Spanish runner, Andrew Blondes. I forget how to say his last name. We didn't have his contact, so, I just texted my friend Sarah. I'm like, "Hey, do you have his contact?" And she sent it to us. So he's someone we're, like, hoping to interview soon. So yeah, it's mostly that. Like, we do planning usually, like, the day of the episode or the week of if we have time. Kinda just like to outline what we're gonna talk about if it's not Trail Tales, which Trail Tales is like our more conversational episodes. Um, and yeah, and oh, we identify like the races we wanna focus on for the year. So like end of last year, we got, pretty much the halfway up to OCC is kinda like our mark of like,
right.
okay, we wanna talk about canyons, we wanna talk about Broken Arrow and like starting to do more of that. Because the first year we did like every race and we were like, at the end of the year, that was way too much. So then we're starting to kind of narrow our focus. Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Because it almost then becomes like a news show where you do need to do a load of prep and like pay a lot more attention and
Yeah.
know like who came third in the women's race in this like shorter distance at this somewhat obscure race in Asia that's actually quite big. So we need to talk about it. And then it
Yeah.
feels like a job rather than just chatting about stuff that you
Exactly.
actually know. So do you find that
Yeah.
you do focus a bit more on like the North America stuff just because that's where you're based and you're more plugged into that? Yeah.
Yeah, we get messages here and there about like, "Hey, check out this race," which we love. We really, really try to be as global as possible, but I would say naturally in the podcast, yes, we find ourselves talking more about North American races. But we do talk about like Golden Trail, Skyrunner, occasionally the World, um, WMRA, Valsier Mountain Running Cup. And then obviously like OCC and stuff like that. But yeah, and I would say we also have a newsletter that comes out monthly that we definitely we try to interview internationally. We have like a results section, and it would become quite lengthy if we got every single race. So
Yeah.
we just try to like kind of focus on a handful there.
Okay, cool. Interesting. Well, a little final thing, because it just popped into my head earlier when you mentioned that you went to university in Santa Barbara. Is that where you live now, or
Yeah,
do
I
you live in
actually
Santa
live in
Barbara?
I'm not. I live in,
Okay.
Mammoth Lakes, California. So,
Oh,
it's
okay,
just a
okay.
little north of Yosemite. Yes, on the Eastern
Yeah, yeah.
Sierra. Yeah.
Okay, nice. Well, it just reminded me of something that I saw in the week, which was literally, I think, a new UTMB World Series race got announced, which was like that's Santa Barbara, right? On a ranch or something.
Yeah, it's like so Santa Barbara's on the coast, and then the race is happening on the backside of the Los Padres National Forest. So it's kinda like back in our wine country near Santa Ynez, and there's a lot of private land back there, which I'm guessing maybe they made agreement with a ranch or something like that near Lake Kachuma. So they're branding it as Santa Barbara, but as someone from Santa Barbara, I'm like, "Well, it's technically on the other side of the mountains," but it's very
Right.
close. It's very close, like a short drive. So yeah, I'm trying to get signed up for that. So if all good post CCC and the pinky toe is still okay, I'm hoping to run that because I have a lot of friends down there still.
Oh, cool. Nice. Yeah. I mean, I may see you there because I was signed up for JFK and it's the same day, but it might be
Oh,
better for me to be on the West Coast. Yeah, yeah.
oh, cool. Yeah. I mean, did you like canyons?
It's, I got COVID on the flight and I didn't race. So I've had a bit of a
No.
similar kind of last 8 months to you. Less dramatic, but yeah, DNF at OCC, a few niggles and kind of bits and pieces like that. And then a couple of OK races earlier in the year, flew to California. Big A goal race for the year was going to be Canyons 50K. Got ill on the
Mm-mm.
flight. Spent a lovely week with my
Yeah.
wife and daughter in hanging out, but that was somewhat depressing. Got to run a little bit on some of the Western States trails and jog a bit, and then we went to Santa Cruz and San Fran and stuff. Like we had an amazing trip,
Yeah.
but it was a little bit devastating, yeah, because I was feeling quite fit. But
Yeah. Did you like those trails that you ran
yeah,
on? Yeah.
yeah,
Okay, I was gonna say, 'cause Santa Ynez is gonna be, like, or the Santa Barbara is gonna be very, very runnable, and then Kodiak is a major also.
I
I don't know if
did
you
see
saw that
that.
one. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, I did see that actually, but it doesn't. Yeah, it just doesn't fit with the
schedule-wise.
personal schedule.
Yeah.
Yeah, JFK seemed kind of cool because it's really unique and a bit different, and I've, uh, I think I'm got a weird mix of stuff. Like I really like fast technical downhill running, but I'm also fairly quick at like flat marathon runner.
It's
So
perfect.
that seemed like a weird mix of the two. Like do a half marathon on trail that's a bit technical, and then run a fast marathon. I was like, oh, maybe I could do that. But yeah, I think maybe the Santa Barbara race suits because not much elevation, pretty runnable. California is probably going to be a bit nicer in November than Maryland, I would imagine.
Yeah,
Hmm,
and you're in wine
interesting.
country, which is nice.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, it
Yeah.
looks cool. Oh, well, awesome. Maybe I'll see you out there. Well,
Yeah.
let's wrap it up on that note anyway, because I feel like we could just talk all day long about running and stuff. But yeah, this has been really fun. It's been great to meet you.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, best of luck with all the prep. I know it's not long now. And yeah, probably still a little bit of work and stuff to do, but I think it's going to be really exciting to follow your race and see how you get on. And like you say, just take that mindset into the race of being curious. And I mean, it sounds like you are obviously you've mentioned a few times you're working with a sports psych and thinking about this type of stuff. So yeah, I mean, well, whatever. Go and enjoy it. Make the most of it, and we'll definitely be paying attention and watching, and maybe we'll come and say hi over in San Ynez in November.
Cool. That sounds great. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Awesome, cool. All right, well, for all you guys listening, if you hadn't heard of Danny before, now you have. Make sure you definitely go and check out the Sober podcast and follow Danny's journey over at CCC and ongoing from there. Hope you've enjoyed the episode. I certainly have, and we'll be back out again in a couple of weeks' time with the next one. So speak to you all soon. Thanks, Danny.